This week's episode is sponsored by Hokum, Damian McCarthy's most unnerving horror yet. Available now on digital. Hokum stars Adam Scott in a deeply monstrous horror that Bloody Disgusting called pure nightmare fuel that holds you firmly in its grip. Don't miss Hokum, the groundbreaking new horror from Damian McCarthy. Rent or buy it everywhere you get your movies.
Welcome to Scare You to Sleep. I'm your host, Shelby Novak, and I'm here to tell you some true tales of terror sent in by your fellow listeners. Up top, I just wanted to remind you that you can also find me on two other shows. That is the Bloody Disgusting podcast every Wednesday and The Lady Killers every Thursday, both available in video versions on YouTube and Spotify as well. And of course, since this show comes out on Friday, I guess I sort of infect the last 3 days of the work week. That's kind of fun. Well, let's get into things, shall we? Because we're starting with Victoria, and boy, does she have a doozy of a tale for us. Hi, Shelby. I can't believe I'm actually typing this story. My husband and I came across your podcast in 2021, and we've been hooked ever since. He's also been pushing me to submit my story to you. It's very long, mostly because it continued or followed me for a few years. Here we go. I grew up in a very small town in California, near the Arizona border called Blythe. By the way, Victoria, that's so crazy because I grew up in Imperial and I always pass the sign for Blythe when I'm going to my hometown, and I've been to Blythe before, so hey neighbor. There is nothing to do there. There was nothing to do where I was from either. So my best friend and I would always try to find ways to pass the time. It must have been the summer of 1999 or 2000. We were 13 to 14 years old. I'm going to call my best friend Rachel, and I'll refer to myself as Victoria, just because we still frequent that town and everyone knows we're still best friends, and I'd like to respect her privacy. During that summer, Rachel's mom surprised us with a board game that she bought at a yard sale. She was always buying us random games or toys she'd come across. As soon as we saw it, we became immediately intrigued. The game was The Psychic Circle. It looked like a less scary version of the Ouija board. I'm still surprised she got it for us, and she was very against the Ouija. But I think she assumed it had to do with astrology, and Rachel had a ton of books on astrology, dream interpretation, etc. We quickly took the game into Rachel's room and shut the door. We read the instructions and started attempting to play with it. It gives specific information on opening prayers or chants. We followed the instructions, but nothing happened. We kept trying for a few minutes each day and still no luck. Finally, I'd say it was about 2 weeks after getting the board, the indicator started moving. It started with small circular movements, and it took pauses in between. Of course, the first question we asked was, "What is your name?" It said it couldn't tell us that, but it did say she was a little girl who died in a car accident in Blythe when she was 5 years old. We asked her when the car accident was, and she replied with the exact date Rachel was born. Rachel remembered that her mom had saved the newspaper that had her birth announcement, so we thought maybe the car accident would also be mentioned. She said her mom kept it in her dresser, so we waited for her to start cooking dinner before raiding her room. As soon as we walked into her bedroom, our eyes went directly to the dresser. It looked wet. As we got closer, we noticed her mom's holy water had spilled over. We quickly cleaned it up, searched the drawers, but we didn't find the old newspaper. Rachel was positive that her mom always kept it in the same place. We were too afraid to ask her about it, assuming it would just lead to more questions as to why we were looking for it. We went back to the board. Rachel decided to ask the spirit, had she been the one who spilled the holy water? The indicator moved over to the word yes. We both got chills. It was getting late and I had to walk home. I only lived 1 block away, but I was still a bit creeped out, so Rachel said she'd walk with me halfway. While we were walking, Rachel said that she had a weird feeling that we weren't talking to a little girl, and I agreed. There was a heaviness felt in her room when we played. You would think that because we were scared, we'd just stop playing, but no. It just intrigued us even more. We decided to keep it a secret and try to find out who was really communicating with us. That summer, we played almost daily. Now the spirit responded quickly, and the indicator moved so fast that at times, it felt like we didn't even need our fingers to hover over it. The questions were mainly silly. Who likes me at school? Who am I going to marry? Will I ever meet Leonardo DiCaprio? We would also ask it personal questions to test its psychic knowledge. It was always right. Eventually, we got bored and stopped playing for a couple of months. One night, Rachel decided to spend the night at my house, and she brought the board. We set it up, said the opening chant, and started with our usual hello. But nothing happened. A few minutes went by and we kept trying, but no movement. Finally, after about an hour, the indicator started moving. It kept circling over the word no. Back and forth, it kept going over to no. I asked, "Are you mad at us?" And it quickly moved over to yes. I don't know why. A feeling of sadness and dread came over me. So I apologized. I felt like I was afraid to disappoint the spirit. We even started making excuses, saying that we were just so busy with school and other stuff. The indicator went over to hello, and it felt familiar again. This time we decided to ask the spirit questions. We kept pushing for its name, and it wouldn't tell us. At first, he only said he was a man and very old, over 200 years old. I then asked, "Can you at least tell us the first letter of your name?" It paused for a while and eventually hovered over the letter R, and then the letter Q. It went back and forth, so I asked, "Is your name RQ?" He responded, "Yes." We kept playing on and off with RQ for quite some time. The questions were sometimes innocent and silly, but sometimes they got emotional. I wasn't raised by my parents. My grandma had custody of me, and because she was always sick, I'd be left home alone. Sometimes I'd be left alone for months while my grandma was staying with my aunt about 3 hours away, so she could get dialysis treatment. I think the loneliness I felt caused me to form a sort of attachment or dependence on the board. At this point, a year had passed and we were still playing. The board was now at my house most of the time. We'd talk to RQ about 3 times a week, asking him about stuff going on at school or my home life. I noticed Rachel started to get bored doing the same thing, so she stopped wanting to come over just for the board. I mentioned to her that I would just start playing alone. She freaked out. She said she read somewhere that you should never play Ouija alone because it requires 2 people to close the portal. Well, this wasn't the Ouija, so I didn't listen. I started playing alone and talking to RQ on days when I felt lonely. This is when shit hit the fan. I kept the board under my bed. I had a small twin-sized daybed. My comforter was white with a lace trim and a lace bed skirt. Whenever Rachel spent the night, we'd both just lay thick blankets on my carpeted floor and sleep together. One night that she stayed over, we were both asleep. I was laying near my bed on the floor, and I felt something brush against my face. My bed skirt was moving, almost like swaying back and forth and hitting me against my face. I woke Rachel up, but she said it was my own imagination and ignored me after that. I stopped a few minutes later and I fell back to sleep. I didn't bring it up in the morning, but that stayed with me in the back of my mind. I also started to experience a lot of lucid dreams and nightmares. I felt like I was constantly being watched, or a heavy presence was in my house. I kept it to myself for a while until I couldn't anymore. When I finally told Rachel everything that I was feeling and experiencing, she said none of that was happening to her. Then I confessed and told her that I had been playing with the board alone, and that maybe she was right. Had I left a portal open? We decided to stop playing and kept the board hidden in my garage. We went back to playing outside, riding our bikes and trying to forget about the board. However, I kept experiencing the nightmares and other paranormal events happening in my home. I'd hear my name being called while I was showering. I was home alone, doors opening, random whistling sounds in the house. I was scared. I tried to spend more time at Rachel's house because of this. This next section all took place in one day. Rachel's mom went out of town with her sister. My grandma and aunt were finally home for a week, but I decided to hang out with Rachel since she would be all alone with her dad, and he was the type to just hang out in his room and watch TV all day, so I knew she'd be bored. Rachel had just gotten a new boombox with a mic, so we decided to play karaoke. We were in her living room. I set the boombox up and placed a CD in, Backstreet Boys' Millennium, but it wouldn't play. So I kept trying different things. Finally, I got frustrated and I unplugged it and it started playing. I freaked out. This thing wasn't even plugged into the outlet. How was it playing? Then, her TV turned on by itself and went to a screen showing static. I look over at Rachel and she's as pale as a ghost. We started yelling and panicking. Her dad starts yelling at us from his room to shut up and be quiet. I told her, let's go to my house. My grandma and aunt are there and we'll feel safe. As we started walking out the door, we pass a curio where her mom collects different little clowns and masquerade masks. She has a clown that moves his head and plays music when you wind it up. As soon as we pass this curio, the music starts playing. I just remember running out of her house so fast towards mine. We were halfway there, and I saw my aunt and grandma driving out of our street. They smiled at us and waved and just drove away. Me and Rachel looked at each other like, what are we going to do now? It was getting dark. We kept slowly walking towards my house, trying to catch our breath and slow our heart rate after everything we just experienced. Rachel then says, "You think that was our cue?" I respond with, "You think we should ask him?" Once we got to my house, I went straight to the garage and got the board. We went to my aunt's room since it was the only room with a crucifix. We sat on the bed, set up the board, hovered 2 fingers over the indicator and said, "Hello." The indicator quickly moved over the word, "Yes." We asked RQ, "Did you do that? Everything that happened at Rachel's house, was that you?" He responded, "Yes." I was upset. I started yelling, "Why? What do you want? Just leave us alone." The indicator started to move fast, spelling Y-O-U repeatedly. Rachel panicked and yelled, "Who?" The indicator began spelling my name. V-I-C-T-O-R-E. I-A. It was moving fast and kept going over the same letters again. We heard the front door open. My aunt and grandma were back home. My aunt came to her room where Rachel and I were still yelling at the board. Rachel starts telling her everything that happened and starts saying, "I think the demon wants Victoria." My aunt took off her crucifix necklace and laid it on the board and started to pray. But the necklace just fell to the floor. She kept praying and told the spirit that it couldn't have me. The indicator started to spell FUCKYOU. I completely froze. I couldn't believe this was happening. My aunt kept praying Hail Mary repeatedly until everything went quiet. I started crying. I was so scared. My grandma looked at me. I knew she was disappointed. I was raised in a Catholic household, so I knew exactly what she was thinking. My grandma walked out of the house with that board, and we never saw it again. After that, we tried to go back to normal. Rachel and I kept this entire experience a secret for many, many years, but I think something changed for me. Something wanted me, and at that moment, I thought my aunt had fixed it and it would all go away. But now, as an adult, looking back, I think it took me in a different way. After the incident, I went through many hardships. I was still left alone, often due to my grandmother's health, which was quickly declining. I felt a heavy depression, which led me to run with the wrong type of people. I was around a lot of drug use and experienced sexual abuse. Rachel and I didn't see each other much during this time. I knew she was always there, but I didn't want to be a burden to her. When I turned 17, I finally left town. I ended up finishing high school at an adult school and got my first job. Another year passed and I was still dealing with depression, insomnia, and anxiety. I started a new job and made a new friend, Carla. She was my age. We shared a lot of common interests. It was so nice to finally have someone to talk to again, someone my age. My family was around now, but my culture doesn't really understand the effects of depression, so I kept it quiet. Carla and I started hanging out every weekend. She had a crush on a guy named Ricky. His family owned a Mexican restaurant, so we'd always go eat there so she could talk to him. One day, Ricky comes up to me and nervously tells me, "Hey, this is going to sound weird, but the lady in the back booth wants you to call her. She's a close family friend of my family. She's nice, so don't freak out." Ricky hands me a paper with her phone number, and of course, I immediately freak out. Who the heck is this lady? I've never seen her. He tells me to relax, that he knows her very well. She's a medium, but she doesn't offer her services to everyone. I turn around and make eye contact with her. She smiles, and I instantly get a warm feeling. That feeling you get when you see someone you've missed or when you feel safe. It was odd, and that feeling stayed with me. I held on to her number for a while. It took me about a month, but I finally called her. She said she had seen me a few times at the restaurant. She said something was attached to me and that she could help me. She said she could see this thing was heavy and probably causing most of my depression and issues. We set up a date to meet at her home. When I arrived to the medium's home, I was extremely nervous. She invited me in. Her house was full of plants, Catholic saint statues, and smelled strongly like roses. She said the process would take 3 days. I had to use a rose oil mixed with fresh spring water, which we gathered from Little Creek near the San Bernardino Mountains. On the 3rd day, I went to her house at sunset. I walked into her garage, and she had a bunch of incense going, and a stack of huge banana leaves on the floor. She prayed over me and told me to close my eyes. She warned me that if I decided to look, I might not like what I see. I shut my eyes, but of course, I kept getting the urge to peek. The chanting got louder and faster, so I decided to keep one eye open. Moments later, I saw it. A shadow run across the garage, up a wall, and disappear. I looked over at the medium. She was hunched over, drenched in sweat. I looked at my watch. 2 hours had passed. It had only felt like 15 minutes. That night, I slept peacefully. I felt lighter. Now, this wasn't some miracle where my life completely transforms overnight. I still dealt with things that happened in my past, but I no longer felt weak. I felt so strong spiritually. These things all have consequences. I feel like once you fall into the realm, it's hard to fully erase all traces of it. I would still experience more paranormal events, but this time I would also experience the grace of God. I'm sorry for such a long story. I wish I could keep going with more things that happened later in my life. Maybe I can send those to you later. I love your podcast. Keep doing what you love. God bless you always. V. Thank you so much, Victoria, for this story. I thought it was absolutely lovely and intriguing, and I just felt an earnesty from it. So I appreciate you sharing this with us. This has to be, this is a very vulnerable thing to share. So thank you. Thank you for that. I looked up that game. I had never heard of the Psychic Circle board game, and I looked it up, and it is pretty creepy looking. I guess maybe because it's so different looking than a Ouija board. It does have like more symbols and things, and the little planchette, or you said it was an indicator. What would be a planchette out of a Ouija board is like, I don't know. It's so strange. It looks like to me, since I've never seen it before, it looks like something from like a different realm or something. It looks like you can buy one on eBay for $30 if anyone is so inclined. But I think after Victoria's story, I'm good. I don't think I'll be purchasing my own psychic circle. And I think Victoria would probably agree with that advice. So, I mean, do what you will, but pretty creepy. Thank you again, Victoria. We have to go back to where the nightmares began, with Stephen King's first works, the books that made modern horror. Carrie, Salem's Lot, The Shining, Night Shift, The Stand. Start your summer ween with Stephen King, sponsored by Vintage Books. Available now wherever books are sold. Our next story this evening is a very fun glitch in the Matrix from Ashley. Hi Shelby, I experienced my first ever glitch in the Matrix today, so I had to share it with you. Ashley, it makes me so happy that you wanted to share your first glitch in the Matrix with me. I am so honored. Back to your story. If you end up reading this on your podcast, you can call me Ashley, not my real name. Gotcha, girl. I'm a 30-year-old living in Texas, and I work for an activewear company. We have a big focus on community, so while I usually work in-store helping customers, running the fitting rooms, and checking people out, I occasionally work events outside the store. Now that that's out of the way, here's what happened. A couple of weeks ago, I was working a normal shift in-store when I started getting really hot. My hair was down, so I decided to throw it up in a ponytail to cool off. Side note, I have really long, thick hair, so putting it up actually makes a huge difference. Anyway, I went in the back and started digging through my big work bag for a spare hair tie, but I couldn't find one anywhere. This was weird because I almost always have at least 2 or 3 on me. After about 5 minutes of searching with no luck, I gave up and asked a coworker if she had an extra. She did, and she handed me a thin black hair tie, saying something like, "Dollar Tree hair ties for the win." This is important because, like I said, my hair is super thick and long, so I only buy stronger, thicker hair ties. I also match them to my hair color, and spoiler alert, my hair is not black. The ones I buy are softer elastic to help reduce breakage, and I don't buy accessories from Dollar Tree. I know that's a lot of detail, but I need you and your listeners to understand that I am very particular about my hair ties. I thanked my coworker for saving the day and finished my shift like normal. About a week later, I was working a community event. I was helping a mom and her 2 daughters, grabbing sizes, talking about the clothes, and all that. At one point, the mom asked if I had a rubber band or hair tie so she could put her daughter's hair up. Since I was working outside the store, I only had a small fanny pack with me and wasn't even sure if I had one, but I checked anyway. To my surprise, there was the black hair tie my coworker had given me. I knew I wouldn't choose to use that one over my usual ones and wanted to help her like my coworker helped me. So I gave it to her and literally watched her braid her daughter's hair and secure it with that hair tie. Fast forward to earlier today, I was cleaning out my big work bag, pulling out old receipts, candy wrappers, and all the random junk one girl can accumulate. If you know, you know. When the same exact Dollar Tree hair tie fell out of my bag. Shelby, I wish you could have seen my face. I got full body chills. I know I gave that hair tie away. I remember thinking in the moment that I wouldn't use it anyway, and I physically watched the mom use it in her daughter's hair. And yet, here it was on my floor. I know it was the same one because it was thin and black, and I don't own any other hair ties, even remotely like this. So how do I still have it? I know it's such a small thing, but it genuinely freaked me out. Still, I love your show, so I'm kind of excited to finally have my own story to share, even if it did creep me out a little. Thanks for all you do. Keep up the great work. I'm always looking forward to the next episode. Ashley. Thank you, Ashley. And I love that story. I don't know if I've seen so many stories recently on like TikTok and things where there was one where a girl found an extra press-on nail in her bed. That was the same one that it was from the same set she had on her hands, but she hadn't lost a nail. Like they were all still there, but she found one in her bed as if it had like popped off and was in her bed. But she wasn't missing any. And there was another one I saw recently where someone found an extra AirPod. I think it was an AirPod, but it was like some sort of earbud. And in their little carrying case, there were both earbuds were there. And I think they were like a specific color. Like they weren't just like the white AirPods. It was like a teal color or something. It was but that neither of them were missing. I just saw one where like it was ring camera footage, and these like eyeglasses just appeared on the patio. And I don't know, strange things. If you believe in weird high strangeness, it seems like that's happening more and more recently. Just these little things, small enough to make you feel crazy because they're not big enough to ring any sort of alarm bells when you tell most people. You're like, but I found this hair tie. And it's like, it's just a hair tie. And it's like, no, you don't understand. I gave this hair tie away. But hair ties are so common that like other people would feel like it's easily explained away. But in your mind, you know, you were there, you know that you gave that one away. So I believe you. And I think it's weird and fun. I'm sorry it creeped you out though. I am sorry about that. But I'm glad you wrote in. And I do feel honored that you wrote to me about your first glitch in the Matrix. It makes me feel, I don't know, it just makes me feel very special. And just like Ashley got full body chills, or you didn't, I don't think you said you got full body chills, but I'm just putting words in your mouth, Ashley. But as Ashley was creeped out in this previous story, this next story gave me the chills. And Wow, just wow. This is from Christy. Hi, Shelby. I started listening to your podcast years ago during a really lonely time in my life. My boyfriend at the time, now my husband, had left for the army, and your voice became something steady when everything felt uncertain. Later, when I was pregnant with our first child, I would listen on my way to and from work. Even now, your stories take me right back to that feeling of anticipation of a life about to change. That means a lot to me. Wow. Thank you, Christy. The story I'm about to tell you happened when I was 19. I had just ended a 4-year relationship, my first real love. Not long after, I started seeing someone new. I'll call him Alex. Alex was the complete opposite of my ex. Where my ex had been driven and steady, Alex drifted. He didn't have a job, he had a few bad habits, and he carried this constant, simmering jealousy that could turn into a full meltdown without warning. My friends hated him. They saw things I didn't want to see. Our friend group was small and tight. Me, Mark, Leo, Elena, and Thomas. Mark had been serving in the army at the time and was stationed far away. We would Skype often, and every single time, he would tell me the same thing. You need to leave Alex. I'd brush him off. I didn't want to hear it. One day, Mark told me he was coming home for a short visit. He said he'd text me so we could all meet up. That night, I was with Alex when I mentioned Mark was back in town. He lost it. Accusations, suspicion, the usual spiral. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. It was Mark. He and the group were going out for drinks and wanted me to join. Alex saw the message and exploded. He told me I wasn't allowed to go, not even allowed to respond. Instead, we went out together to a small club in our town. I wasn't much of a drinker. I'd usually just have a soda, so I wasn't even drunk that night. It was late, around 3 a.m. The place was nearly empty. The music wasn't even loud anymore. It felt hollow in there. Alex had his arms around me when suddenly, a scream. Sharp, loud, furious. It cut straight through the room. Alex! Not sung, not part of the music. It was unmistakably someone calling his name. Angrily. We both physically jolted apart. We looked around. There was no one near us. No one was even looking our way. The dance floor was almost empty. The DJ hadn't reacted. No one seemed to have heard it. We locked eyes. "Did you hear that?" I asked. He nodded. We both believed in the supernatural. We'd talk about it often. But in that moment, neither of us said what we were thinking. We just stood there in silence, scanning the room that suddenly felt colder. Eventually, we brushed it off. We told ourselves it was nothing. The next morning, I had to attend my grandmother's memorial at the cemetery. While we were there, something felt off. The priests were restless, pacing, whispering urgently. There was a tension in the air that had nothing to do with our family's grief. Then I overheard someone say there had been a terrible accident the night before. 2 young men from the church community. My stomach dropped. Mark was the son of a priest. I immediately started calling everyone. Mark, Leo, no answer. I finally reached Thomas, who told me he had left early the night before after a few drinks and hadn't spoken to the others since. As I was walking out of the cemetery, my phone rang. It was Mark. Relief flooded through me so fast I didn't even think. I answered. It wasn't him. It was a man's voice. Calm, clinical. He told me that the night before, Mark and Leo had lost control of their car while driving home. They had gone off a cliff. Leo was in the hospital. Mark had been pronounced dead at 3 a.m. 3 in the morning. The exact time Alex and I heard someone scream his name in that empty club. I still don't know what we heard that night, but I know what time it was. And to round out this episode, I thought we'd end off with our favorite egregore, Santa Claus. I swear he's the new mascot for these true story episodes. It brings me joy at the amount of people whose memories are being just jolted awake about their stories and memories of having some sort of weird interaction with Santa Claus, quote unquote, after I told all those stories around Christmas time, because I swear, I don't know if we've done a true stories since without someone being like, me too. God, here's my Santa story. And I will take all of them. Please keep sending your Santa stories, because the more I get, the weirder it gets. It was already weird, and it's gotten weirder. You know, I'm going to be able to do like 25 days of Santa stories. And I know most of them aren't scary, but they scare me. I don't know why. These stories always give me a chill. I don't know why. I guess I'm a big baby. I don't know. But yes, here is the last episode of the evening from Terry. Hi, Shelby. I wanted to start off by telling you how much I love this podcast. Life has been really rough since August of 2023, when my 17-year-old daughter passed away. I'm so sorry, Terry. And your podcast is one of the things that helped me find an escape from the pain. I fall asleep at night listening to a guided nightmare. Your voice is so soothing that I usually fall asleep within minutes. So I can't even tell you what any of them are about, LOL. Please consider that a compliment, as I don't sleep very well these days. Anyways, enough gushing and wasting time. You are not wasting time, Terry. Don't even say that. I'm here to tell you a story about my experience with Santa when I was a child. I would like to preface this by saying my childhood was very rough. My parents were alcoholics and abusive, and it only gets worse from there. So they were not the type to set up a Christmas tree, put out decorations, or even really get us presents. So it was usually my older brother and I just trying to survive and stay invisible. At the time of this memory, I was 6 or 7, and my brother was 8 or 9. That's the ages. Those are the ages. Sorry, Terry, not to interrupt. Sorry. The house we lived in was pretty big. We had our own rooms, but they were connected by a doorway. I was afraid of everything as a child. Hell, I'm still afraid of most things, LOL. So the door never got closed because I would panic. On Christmas Eve, I remember my parents were downstairs fighting like they always did. I got scared, so I went into my brother's room and sat on his bed with him. The doorway to the attic was in his bedroom. It was a small doorway with steps that led up to a short attic with a vaulted ceiling. So, as we were on the bed doing whatever kids do, I hear something like a jingling sound off in the distance. We both got quiet and started listening very hard, neither of us believing what we were hearing. We can still hear our parents fighting downstairs, so there is no chance it was my parents. All of a sudden, we hear what sounds like hooves land on the roof. Not just 2 or 4 hooves, like multiple hooves. I remember I was so scared that I curled into a ball and covered myself with the blanket I brought into the room with me. Next thing you know, it's the next morning, and I'm in my bed. I don't know if my brother and I talked about it after that. The memory just stops there. I'm now 43 and memories come and go sometimes. But this past Christmas, when you did the episode of Reddit Stories, you read the one about Santa and the memory came slamming back. I can remember this one small blip of time clear as day. I can't remember anything that happened before or after, but I will swear to you, this is an honest memory. I'm not sure if this will ever be read on the show, and it's okay if it isn't, but I do hope one day you see this and read it, even if only to yourself. I do have more stories I can share if you're interested. When I went to live with my grandma, she lived in a haunted house, and Graham had some lore, apparently. I'll be happy to share the experiences I had while living there. Anyway, I think I've made this long enough, so I'll leave it there for now. I don't care if you use my name, but please only use my first name, not my last. Thank you. Sending love, Terry. Thank you, Terry. I would be interested in your haunted house stories when you were living with your Gram. And for those wondering, if you don't tell me to use an alternate name, several of the stories in this episode were actually requested I use different names. I will just use your first name. You can also request to be anonymous. You don't even have to make up a name if you don't want. You can just be anonymous. But I will just always kind of go to the fail-safe of only using a first name if you don't have any requests, because I do know that some of the stories shared are sometimes sensitive materials that you may not want. You don't want everybody knowing your business if someone happens to know you and they're also listening to the show. I get it. I got you. Don't worry about it. Terry, I hope you're doing better now. I am so sorry you went through that with your daughter, and that, sounds like you've had a rough go of it, and I just wish you so much good and love in your life going forward. But that is it for this evening of True Horror Stories. If you have a story you'd like to submit to be considered to be on the show, please send it to scareyoutosleep@gmail.com, and please put in the subject line True Story. If it is one, you can also send in your fictional submissions as well, but also indicate that in the subject line so I can put them in the right categories. And thank you so much to everyone who submitted tonight. I know these stories are not easy to tell sometimes, and I really, truly, truly appreciate you feeling comfortable enough to share them with me and with everyone listening. Thank you so much. I don't take it lightly that you trust me with your stories. I really don't. And if you'd like ad-free episodes, ad-free versions of these episodes, you can go to patreon.com/scareyoutosleep and become a Patreon member for ad-free episodes and bonus episodes. To my Patreon listeners out there, I will have up the last of Ted the Caver. I'm so sorry. I started it and I just have not gotten it uploaded. There's been a whole lot going on, which on top of that, I'm going to be doing a ramble soon. I have so much to tell you. Oh my God, I swear. I haven't been journaling either, so you're going to get an earful of just all of my personal BS in the next ramble. Get ready. And let's see what else. You can follow the show on social media. You can you can join the Facebook page. I've seen so many new people joining the Facebook group. I'm so happy to have you. So just go search for Scare You to Sleep. You can join the group. It has a few questions just to weed out bots and scammers. So you can answer podcast for the questions. You can also join the spin-off group, Scare You to Eat, where we share all of our fun food stuff, because I love to talk about food. You can also follow me on Instagram. You can follow the show on Instagram and Threads and things, or you can follow me personally at Shelby B. Novak. And I may have already done this, but I'd love to give a warm welcome to all of my new listeners. I know I've had a little influx of you, so thank you. Welcome for those who found me from, I think some of you are from the Antiquarium, some of you of Sinister Happenings. There are 2 Antiquariums now, but the Antiquarium of Sinister Happenings. Some of you are from Lady Killers, and some of you, I don't know where you're from, but welcome, and remember, tell your friends about the show. It was a little bit of a rough go of it for a second there with the show, so I appreciate those numbers climbing back up just for my own sanity, and I would hate to have to stop doing the show for whatever reason, because I have to put my focus elsewhere for just, dumb real life monetary reasons. Keeping food in Clara's belly. And so yes, I really appreciate you being here. I appreciate those of you who have been spreading the word, and welcome to the Little Nightmare over here. We love it. We're happy to have you. Speaking of Little Nightmares, I will be having some guided nightmares come out soon. I will have a short series coming out soon with an author, and so it's going to be every other week starting on June 17th. And along with those episodes, I decided, I haven't done a lot of bonus stuff recently. I would love to have throughout the summer just some more bonuses. So keep an eye out for that. There should be some weeks coming up where there will be double the content. Of course, you don't have to get to it right away. I don't want to overload you during summer. You've got stuff to do, but if you feel so inclined, or if you were looking for extras, some of you have been actually asking for more content. Week to week is not enough, and I get it. There's some like ASMR people, because I'm big into ASMR. There are some ASMR creators I listen to, and they release an episode like once a month or once every couple months, and it makes me bananas. It's so hard to wait. So I fully am on board with you. I understand. I've really been wanting to start my ASMR channel too, but I just haven't found the time recently. But let me know too if you're interested in that. I'm not really sure how much interest there would be. It wouldn't be Scare You to Sleep. It would be a separate thing, and it would be a lot more traditional ASMR. It would be my voice, but also I want to like do a video where I show off my antique book collection, and I don't know. I love ones where they take like makeup brushes and kind of brush the camera and just talk gently to you. I was going to do something like that. Or just, just random little things to be soothing, to give back in the ways that I've enjoyed so thoroughly throughout the last few years of my ASMR journey. So yeah, let me know if you would be interested in an ASMR channel, an ASMR YouTube channel. Look, I'm not going to say it's not spooky at all, because I'm just a spooky lady, but it won't be like, it'll be separate from Scare You to Sleep, additional to, if that helps. Sorry, I spaced out for a second there. My feet are on my desk, and I have the craziest flip-flop tan line going on my feet. Like, it is just like someone tattooed a white lines on my feet. It's that time of year. I've been going on a lot of walks. Got distracted by my own feet. Newcomers are like, what is this? What is this? It's what it is. Baking corner. What did I bake this week? I didn't bake. I made some sugar-free chocolate pudding. That's boring. How boring, right? Ew. I'll let you know. I'll do something fun. Next week. Oh, I did make, in non-baking, but in cooking corner, I did make albondigas. I made a big pot of albondigas. I froze some of them, but I also just, basically, that's all I ate for all week, was just that. And it was so good. I used my great-grandma's recipe. And it's this really cool, I think I've talked about it. It's this little cookbook that's like a regional cookbook of like Mexican American food that like my grandma was asked to participate in her like the area she lived in, and it's full of all kinds of great recipes. It was printed in 1983, and so it's just, I've been wanting to make some of these other recipes in there as well, but I mostly just make hers. She also has one in there for oyster stew that I've never made before. But and I don't remember her making that growing up. Maybe she just never made it for me because I wasn't ever a big seafood person. I don't know. But yeah, so I made albondigas this week. It was very, very good. I have made a few little changes to her recipe. Don't tell her, okay? Her ghost is standing over me at all times. I think she watches over me, and I think she approves. I think I add more vegetables to it. How can she be mad at that, right? So, sorry, Grandma. Nana. I used to call her Nana. That's what I called her. But anyway, enough about me. Enough about my soup. Go make albondigas. Well, actually, it's pretty hot. It's not really soup weather, unless you're in Australia and New Zealand. Is it getting cold over there, guys? I'm not really sure. I don't know how I know your seasons are like opposite of ours, but I don't know how, is it getting cold over there? If so, try out some albondigas. It's very good. Try it out. Okay, I'm gonna go. This is devolved. I'm gonna let you go, and I'm gonna go play a video game. Yeah, I read a great book this week, by the way. It's called Victorian Psycho. It's going to be a movie soon. I actually read it because of a thing that I'm doing, but very good, very gory. If you don't like things to do with kids being harmed or animals, I don't recommend it. It's pretty brutal. but I read it in one evening and it was very good. So there's a book recommendation as well. Victorian Psycho. All right, I'm going to go. I love you. Go drink your water. Go get some sleep. Sweet dreams.